Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, President, Founder, and Executive Producer. And today I am hosting a brand new show. This is our pilot episode of What We Were Never Taught. And the reason I decided to do this is I have noticed many things coming up for us that we should have been taught in school, right? Someone could have taught us this along the way. And as we turn into adults and go through adulthood, we realize that there are things that no one ever really shared with us about how to deal with certain things. So each episode will be focused on a different topic. And today, what I'd like you to think about is, have you ever left a conversation where you felt really confident in what you were saying? You felt like you presented your case or whatever you were sharing, you felt good about it, and you walked away feeling like, did I say something wrong? Did I do something? I don't really feel like I was understood or heard. So that's what we're going to talk about. Tonight, I'm naming why misunderstanding has become normal and why so many people think that they're the problem when they're not. So what does this look like and what can you expect? Every episode will be 40 minutes. We will be streaming live, and you will be able to find us on any of the platforms where we normally stream. If you'd like to get involved in the show and you want to put a comment, something positive or something that you have a question about, please feel free to go ahead. So the purpose of the episode tonight and this whole new show is to name a problem that most people experience, but they're rarely articulating it. And today we're talking about that quiet exhaustion that comes from being misunderstood or over-explaining or constantly trying to get it right in conversations. And we're going to look at the fact that this is not a personal flaw, but we're going to reframe it as an issue that's aligned with a gap in a skill set. So that's why this series exists. And this is why so many people are starting to feel or acknowledging that they're very drained after conversations. And we have a common belief, which is, I must not be communicating well enough. I must not be speaking my native language. I don't know what the problem is, but the anchor idea of this whole thing is that the problem is not you. The problem is how communication is structured, delivered, acknowledged, and or rewarded. In the world that we're in today, everything's so fast. Everything has to be done immediately. We want immediate answers. We want immediate behavior change. And so this is part of the reason, in my opinion, why misunderstanding is so normalized. We want fast conversations, right? The faster we say it, the faster we get it done, the better it is. Is that really the case? I remember when I was in corporate, I was working for someone who was much younger, and the person said to me, when you speak, you use too many words. And when you write, your communication is too long. So everything that you should be sharing with me should fit into the size of a Twitter post at the time. And at the time, I didn't even know what that was. And I had always been told that when you speak and you're coming from a place of heart-centric feelings, you should be able to express yourself. I didn't know that we had to kind of economize it and deliver it as quickly as possible. And when we do that, sometimes we don't feel good about it. We might feel misunderstood because now we're asked to deliver information in a quick, shortened way. Another area is opinions are valued more than understanding. Everyone has an opinion about everything. So we just give our opinions freely. We don't even ask for permission to do it. And that's supposed to be more important than actually understanding one another. We are speaking to respond. As soon as someone says something, have you ever said to yourself, oh, I've got to say something right now. I've got to respond. Instead of trying to comprehend, instead of taking a few minutes to collect our thoughts about what the other person shared. No, we've got to come back quickly. We've got to have something to say right away. We've got to give our opinion. Why do we have to give our opinion all the time? Why can't we just sit and think about what someone else shared? And when we do speak in an articulate way, that doesn't mean that we're going to be understood. That might mean that other people feel intimidated. They feel like you're trying to talk over them. They feel like you think you're more intelligent than they are. So what happens is we don't speak our mind. And now, in my opinion, misunderstanding has become socially acceptable. It's like, okay, I don't know what she's talking about. I don't know what he's talking about, but I guess it must be okay because that's just the way that it is. So I want to talk a little bit about over-explaining. Sometimes we get into a trap where we have to constantly over-explain ourselves because we feel like we have to protect ourselves. So if we give long-winded answers and try to justify what we're saying, then we feel like we're actually being heard. And instead, the person already dismissed us a while back because we're continuing to give more and more information instead of just cutting to the point. We don't have to over-explain ourselves, and nobody tells us this. If you're engaged in a conversation and you don't really agree with what the person's saying, you don't have to agree with them. You don't have to give your opinion. You don't have to explain and then over-explain why you have a different perspective. You can just acknowledge what they're saying. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. You don't have to say, I think you're wrong. I think I'm right. Where does that get you? But nobody tells us this. What we have been told is that control and power, that's where it's at. That we need to be right in every conversation. We need to one-up the other person. That's a misunderstanding because what does that do? It creates tension. It creates stress. It creates volatility. And how does that show up? It can show up in our physical health. It can show up in our mental health. It can show up in how we treat other people. So this episode, that's what we're focusing on. Being misunderstood. Now, the next part of over-explaining. And I want you to really be honest with yourself. Do you find yourself over-explaining? Is this something that has become part of who you are? And if so, how do you feel about it? Over-explaining can also be tied to people-pleasing. And people-pleasing can disguise itself as clarity. Oh, she's happy, he's happy, so everyone's clear on where we stand. No, everyone's not clear on where we stand. Basically, you gave in to something because you didn't want to move forward and have a conversation because maybe you're tired of being misunderstood. Maybe you're tired of being cut off. Maybe you're tired of over-explaining yourself. The emotional cost of constantly justifying yourself can be overwhelming. overwhelming. How does this show up? It shows up in our work. It shows up in our families. It shows up in our leadership. And as I mentioned, it can very often show up in our health. Does this happen overnight? Maybe not. Maybe it just builds and builds and builds. And then one day you realize you don't feel too well and you can't actually pinpoint it. You're completely and totally exhausted. And you try to think of what it could be. Did I do too much of this or too much of that? And basically, it's that you've been over-explaining yourself. That is often a response to unsafe communication environments. If you find yourself in a relationship, in a situation where you don't feel safe to share how you feel, maybe reevaluate being in that situation or in that relationship. Now, let's look at when we feel confident. We're confident in what we're sharing. We're confident in who we are. But the other person or persons, they're not acknowledging it. And so it's almost like what we're saying falls on deaf ears, and we're not getting any kind of response that we thought we would get. Sometimes calm confidence, it's within us. We don't have to walk around and say, oh, I'm very confident in what I'm doing. It comes through. But it can often be interpreted as putting distance between you and the other person. Another area I want you to think about is when you are in a place of being considerate and kind and thoughtful, do you find yourself being interrupted? As opposed to if you were angry and anxious, people just let you have the floor. When you're kind and generous, for some reason, I found people want to interrupt. Why? Because they feel uncomfortable. And that's on them. And this is another part of how we can be misunderstood. We can be secure in who we are. We can feel good about who we are. We can feel confident in our thoughts. But the other party or parties don't feel the same way. So what do? If we don't have skills, if we haven't worked on our personal and professional development, we can start coming down to the other person's level in terms of their ability to communicate and understand. And it's not a hierarchy. It's not one's better than another. But certain times in life, we find people who are very skilled and trained at communication. And this clarity can also be mistaken for coldness. Oh, you think you're better than I am. Oh, you think you know more because you can speak in a different way. Confidence does not need to be performed to be real. You know you have the confidence. That's all that matters. You don't have to convince anyone else. You don't have to start explaining yourself. Oh, I've taken courses, or I have coaches, or I have mentors, or whatever it is. You don't have to explain anything because the other person's not going to get it. So realize that misunderstanding is on them. Now you might say to yourself, well, how am I supposed to have a conversation if I'm never understood? Well, think about who you're communicating with. Start realizing who it is that's in your life. And if you have conversations that are continuously frustrating, that are not going anywhere, what's the answer? You know what the answer is. The answer is we have to surround ourselves with like-minded people who are interested in professional and personal development. I truly believe this. It is so easy. Just for example, on this television show, okay, we haven't had any tonight, which is a blessing. I can't tell you how many times I'm broadcasting and there are nasty, negative comments that have nothing to do with me or the show. They have to do with politics or world affairs. People are so angry that this is what they're spending their time doing. Are they doing anything constructive to help the situation? No, they're perpetuating it. So how can you, someone who's working on themselves, someone who's watching the show or listening to the show, working on your personal and professional growth, how can you communicate with someone that's what their interest is? You can't. So don't keep doing it. There's not a misunderstanding. That's a difference. If you find that you're going home or you are communicating with your family and friends and you're constantly feeling like you have to explain what you're doing, why do you keep doing it? Do you need the external validation? This is something that people don't teach us when we're in school. We do not need external validation because as many people that you ask that you find agree with you, you will find just as many, if not more, who do not. So what are you going to do with this information? When you're in a place in your life where you realize, you know what, I've gone through a few things in my life. I've fought a few fights. I've come through a few health issues. I think I know what's best for me. Everything starts to change. But nobody tells us this. What we're told is we have to love everyone. We have to be nice to everyone. And I do believe in being nice and being kind and showing up with empathy and compassion. Absolutely. That is how I lead my life, especially as a peace ambassador. But that doesn't mean in my immediate circle, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that I have to surround myself with people who are constantly questioning me, that I have to constantly explain myself. Absolutely not. That's exhausting. And you have to ask yourself, what is it about what you're doing or you're saying that the other person feels uncomfortable and they keep wanting you to explain yourself? Now, maybe it's the reverse. Maybe you're the one asking all the questions, asking people to justify what they're doing. I would ask you, what is coming up for you that you feel this way? So to me, in my professional experience and in my personal life, I like to look at human behavior. So when we don't feel good about ourselves, which we all have those moments, we start to question ourselves. That is when we look for the solution. What is the solution that I need so that I feel better about myself? What is it that isn't sitting right? As opposed to, hey, what do you think's wrong with me? Hey, what do you think I could do better? Now, I do believe in constructive feedback. I don't believe in criticism. I had somebody bring that up on another show. I think criticism has a negative intent, but no one knows you better than you know you. And you are the only one who will come up with the answers. Now, you can go to a professional, you can go to a mentor or coach or therapist, but I can tell you, as a certified coach, one of the things that we're taught is that we don't give advice. We don't give our opinion. We ask powerful questions to get our clients to think. And so when you are the one doing the work, you're the one who has the epiphany. Oh my gosh, you know what? I just realized this about myself. That has so much more validity and meaning when it comes from you, as opposed to asking other people for their opinion. Now, is it good to listen to other people's feedback if it's constructive, if they care about you, they love you, they want you to win, they really are an advocate, as I like to say, they're your cheerleader? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to have to make the decision. Okay, so sometimes the hidden cost of this communication fatigue, of over-explaining ourselves, is emotional exhaustion and burnout. And then the thing that comes after this is the second guessing of ourselves. And then when we start second guessing ourselves after we have these repeat types of behavior with the same people, we start avoiding conversations altogether because we start to lose trust in our own voice. So what they don't teach us in school is that communication fatigue slowly erodes away our self-trust. As I just mentioned, no one knows you better than you. You may be at a place in your life where you feel like you don't know you, and that's okay. We've all been there at some point in time. You can get to know yourself, but getting to know yourself means spending time with yourself. Have you ever seen someone who has to constantly be with other people, or when they are alone, They have to have something on the television, radio, because they don't want to be alone with their own thoughts. But yet, being alone with your own thoughts and getting to know yourself can be really exciting. It can be something that brings out such amazing thoughts and ideas that you never had before because you were always surrounded by distractions or noise or other people. So start to get to know yourself. And when you start to get to know yourself and what you like and what resonates with you, what feels good, all of a sudden, those misunderstandings that you've had with other people, it will become clear that it's really not a misunderstanding. Maybe you were just people pleasing. You didn't want to rock the boat. You didn't want to disrupt anything. How many times have we done that? It's better just to walk away or not say anything because you don't want to get into a whole thing with someone. And I'm also an advocate for that. I'm not an advocate of let's bring out the skeletons from 30 years ago and talk about it, because where does that get us? But we can set boundaries about what we're willing to let into our life and what we're not willing to let into our life. And that means knowing who you are, knowing what brings you joy, and trusting your own mindset. You know when something doesn't feel right. And when you have to continuously explain yourself to someone else, start asking yourself, why am I doing this? This person obviously is not understanding what I'm saying, or they're just not interested, or it's a power play where they're just messing with us because they know that they can. No one teaches us these things. So think about your own life and your own communication, who you're having difficulty communicating with, and what does that look like? So let's talk about what really was never taught. And I'm talking about myself, okay? I can't say what you've been taught when you were in school, but I'm talking about when I was in school. So I've been in high school, I've got a college degree, I've got a master's, I've got a doctorate, and now I'm in Wharton. So I'm talking about how conversations are actually shaped. I'm talking about the mutual responsibility that's required for clarity. Both entities in the conversation wanting to hear the other. In fact, some of what I like to do when I'm having conversations with people, and after you know someone for a while, it just sort of becomes innate. One person shares something, then the other person shares something. And you sort of go back and forth. And so you have an hour together and you take turns going back and forth. And you really do try to give space to process what the other person is saying, because then both of you walk away from the conversation feeling heard. Now, it's not your job to carry the entire conversation. If that's the case, if you've been with someone where they don't seem to be communicating at all, and you're doing all the talking, you're asking questions, then you're giving information, and it goes back and forth, and that in and of itself is exhausting. And you say to yourself, I don't understand. Why aren't they engaging in the conversation? Who knows? We can't read minds. But maybe that's a conversation you'll think about twice before you have it again with that person. Now, what can we start noticing immediately in our daily interactions with other people? Are the other people really listening? Are they listening to understand? Are they listening to react? How are you listening? Are you listening and you immediately think to yourself, oh, I've got to interrupt him or her because I have something to say? No, you don't actually have to interrupt someone. You can just wait. What happens is, and I've talked about this many times before, we as humans get so emotionally charged. We have something that we want to say, and we've got to say it at that moment. Why? We're not children. We're adults. Take a few deep breaths, ground yourself, and sit with it. When you sit with whatever it is that you were desperate to share with someone else, who knows what might come through for you? As opposed to you get on the phone, You start calling people, you put it on social media. That's one that I love. Someone puts something really personal on social media and wants the masses to weigh in on it. Where does this get you? To me, the person comes across as looking very insecure and in need of external validation. And that's not a judgment, that's just how it comes across. When we are able to sit and process the information, and think about the last time you did this, or have you ever done it? You had something that happened to you. It was good, it was bad, it resonated with you, it didn't, and you actually didn't tell anyone. You sat with the information for an hour, a day, a week. Maybe you've never told anyone. How empowering is that? To know that you have everything you need inside you to handle that information and process it and decide what to do with it. Should you act on it? Shouldn't you act on it? What I can share with you is this. If and when you immediately act on something, you may very well regret it in the future because you let your emotions take over. Now, what is my suggestion for this? This is something that I do. Have I always been doing it? No. Have I been highly emotional in my life? Absolutely. I'm 62 now. I would say when I turned 55, for whatever reason, I started being less emotional. And today, what I do is I allow myself 10 minutes to cry, scream, be upset, and that's the end. There was one time when I gave myself an hour. And after the hour, I said, that's it. What is the solution? We get so emotional about things that we completely lose logic. We lose our frame of reference. We thought we were upset about this, but now we're upset about something else that had nothing to do with this. We never even resolved the first issue, and now we're on 2 or 3 other issues. So our emotions are great things. They differentiate us from many species, especially artificial intelligence, which is not a species, but you know what I'm saying. So using those emotions in a good way to channel our energy to help us find a solution. Now, we're talking about today being misunderstood. So if you are having conversations with people and you feel like you're misunderstood, the first thing you can look at is it across the board. Is it seemingly everyone you speak to, they don't understand what you're saying? That could be a clue that maybe you're not expressing yourself in a way that people understand in general. But if it's one person, two, it's here, it's there, it's not all the time. What you can share with yourself, what you can say to yourself is, you know what? They don't have to understand me. They get the right not to understand me. And I'm not going to judge them on it. And I'm not going to try to explain myself. If you start explaining yourself, that doesn't mean that they're going to understand. What it now means is that you're defending yourself. So whatever your position was, instead of you coming from a feeling of strength and empowerment, you give that power away to the other person. And you walk away from the conversation, at least I have, just feeling worthless, feeling stupid and small, just so, just off your game. But meanwhile, you were steadfast in your beliefs, but your emotions started creeping in. And then you gave your power away. Now, what am I talking about when I say power? The power is your confidence. It's your self-esteem. It's your ability to make choices. You basically hand it over to someone else because you want them to understand you. So I ask you to ask yourself, why? Why do you want them to understand you? Where is it coming from? What happens if they do understand you? What happens when they understand you? How is that going to change your life? One thing that I learned very early on, and actually my father taught me this, so I can't say that I never learned this, but he did say to me, do not depend on anyone else in your life. He said, your mother and I are here for you. You have to stand on your own 2 feet. There's no one coming to save you in your life. You have to save yourself. And you know what? At the time, I didn't really get it. And maybe I thought it was kind of mean, which is a judgment, but that's what I thought at the time. But today I realized he actually handed me a gift because he gave me the keys to the kingdom. The keys of the kingdom are you have to take care of yourself. And taking care of yourself means you might not be the most popular. Everyone might not like you. You might not get invited to all the events. You might not get invited to holidays, but you have peace of mind. And that peace of mind to me is priceless. So being misunderstood could be a gift. It depends on what you do with it. So if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to answer them. But I'm going to continue just a little bit more with our program, and then we'll be closing it up. So I thank you for being here today. Some of the key takeaways are this. Feeling misunderstood can happen to all of us. It's very common, but it's not personal. We take it as personal because we make it about us. But in reality, it's actually about the other person. It's really on them. So as Mel Robbins would say, and not a paid spokesperson, let them. Let them not understand what you were talking about, the choices that you make, or what you were doing. When we over-explain ourselves, this is not a flaw. This doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means that we've learned this over time. We've been backed into a corner, so to speak, and we just started coming out with explanations. Oh, that one didn't work. So let me try this one. Let me go this one. Let me go that one. And we've just incorporated it. It's like a bad habit, but we can get rid of it. We can shed the habit. The first thing we need to do is to be aware of it. So wherever it is you're watching from in the world and whatever you're going through, I want you to think about these things. I want you to think about most people are not struggling because they lack confidence or intelligence. They're struggling because they were never taught how understanding is actually created. And in order to understand someone, you have to be open. You have to come from a place of love. We can come from a place of fear, or we can come from a place of love. And when we come from a place of fear, that is when we are judgmental. That is when we are interrupting. That is when we are asking for explanations instead of being curious and trying to process the information. I personally love to meet people from different parts of the world because I love learning how people live. I love learning about their environments, about how they make decisions. I find that exciting. But some people don't. We're all different. So my message to you is that if you are feeling misunderstood, you have an opportunity to change it. You have an opportunity to say, let them misunderstand me. Let them judge me. Let them make whatever decisions they're going to make, and I will make my decisions. I will have faith. I will have confidence in the choices that I make, and I will not look for external validation. And again, this comes from a place of love. I'm not talking about doing things that are dishonest or illegal. Absolutely not. I'm talking about coming from a place of love, kindness, generosity. You are a good person, and you don't have to explain yourself. You just have to act in accordance with what your thoughts are. If you believe you're a good person, if you're doing the right things, your behavior will show that, and you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. So that's my message for today. And I want to thank you for being here for my pilot episode. I really do appreciate it. I have another show coming up with Mariska Dupria right after this, A Woman's Prerogative. If you'd like to get in touch with me, let me pull up my contact details. Here is a link for my websites, usaglobaltv.com, drjacalyn.com, or you can email me at drjacalyn@usaglobaltv.com. If you'd like to be a guest on any of our shows, you can go to our website, which is usaglobaltv.com/book your session. All right. Thank you very much for being here. Please do subscribe to our channels. I'm going to pull that up right now. We have 2 YouTube channels that we distribute to many different platforms. We're actually live streaming to 8 platforms right now. But if you would go over to our YouTube channels, if you're watching somewhere else, we'd really appreciate it. I personally would appreciate it because we get a lot of good information from YouTube. The other platforms, they take shows down after 30 days, and we don't know who's watching and what's resonating. So when you go here on YouTube, they give us great analytics that we can actually use to tailor our content. So thank you again for being here. I really do appreciate it. I wish you all the best. And remember, you have everything you need inside yourself right now. Make good decisions and be at peace. Thank you again. We're going over to our sponsors. Bye for now.
Listen, babe, now. Listen, babe, now. Listen, babe, now. Listen, babe, now. Listen, babe, now. Listen, babe, now.
In a noisy world, true connection begins with listening. Elevated listening transforms every conversation in just 5 simple steps. Pause and breathe. Set your intention. Listen with curiosity. Reflect back. Agree on one next step. Join the Listening Mentor on Let's Finally Talk with Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, the Listening Mentor, where we help you find inner peace, one conversation at a time. Streaming every day. Let's Finally Talk TV show with Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, only here on USA, Global TV and Radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channels to watch and engage with all our content.
In a world craving connection, one platform dared to dream bigger. USA Global TV and Radio, a beacon for global voices, authentic storytelling, and elevated listening. Led by visionary Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, the journey from a spark to a global force is now captured in one inspiring book. Honored with YouTube's Silver Creator Award for surpassing 100,000 subscribers. Discover the evolution, the challenges, the triumphs, and the unstoppable spirit that created a global movement. Executive producer Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang. Creative director Paul Garcia. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Now an Amazon #1 new release in paperback and ebook. Broadcasting Brilliance, the evolution of USA Global TV and Radio, is inspiring readers around the world. Join the movement that's redefining global media one story at a time.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA-Global-TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.